Hello, welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm the Laser Model Guy. What I'm going to do today is show you how I cut out all the components and make a complete balsa kit to build the RAF Spitfire. I'm going to just show you how I arrange everything on Lightburn, and then once I've arranged everything on Lightburn, or shown you how I've arranged everything on Lightburn, then I'm going to send it straight across to the laser. We'll cut out all the components, and I'm going to be cutting from several different materials today. I'll be using ply, 6.5mm balsa, 3.2mm balsa and 1/16 balsa, or 1.6mm balsa. And if you are wondering how we get all those settings, I've got my video, The Basics, which I did a couple of weeks ago, and you'll be able to see how to do your test cuts. But once we do that, I'm going to send it all across to the laser, cut out a full kit, and then we're going to start the build today. So let's get going. Okay, before we send components to the laser, I'll just show you what I've done. You can see all of those components are now gone from here because I've sent them to other files, depending on the material that they are. So if I just open the first of our 3.2mm files, what you can see here is that we've got our ribs for one side of the wing and the body formers, or the formers for the for one side of the fuselage. Now you can notice also here I've got the nose piece for the fuselage, and here I've got R1, R1 and R1, so there's 3 R1s in this. Now the other thing to notice is that I've laid them out so that we waste as little balsa as we can, but also making sure that the length of the components run along the grain, because the sheets of balsa will be laid out, you know, lengthways from left to right here. Now if you just take a look here, this is the 100mm line. Now our pieces of balsa are 100mm wide, so if you look along that line you'll see that no component crosses that 100mm line. If we did allow a component to cross that, then when we cut out these components, they would be, part of the component would be on one sheet and part of the components on another, which wouldn't really be satisfactory. And you can see here the 200mm line, again we've got nothing crossing that line. So that's more or less how I'm trying to lay everything out. If we take a look at balsa 3.2mm balsa sheet 2, you can see very similar. Now there are only 2 R1s because the one that's in the very centre of the wing is already produced on the other sheet, and you can also see that there's no nose cone or no nose former here because there's only one of those on the aircraft. So this is a duplicate of the other components, but without those 2 that we don't need to duplicate. So a quick look at, we'll have a look at our 6.5mm balsa sheets, and what we've got here, you can see that that's the rudder, and there is the tail or vertical stabilizer, or the fin if you like, and these are the 2 ailerons, and all of those will be cut out of 6.5mm balsa, and then these are the parts for the keel. So that's the very back of the aircraft where the tail plane will slot in there, and then as you work away from that, you see that you know, they're all numbered up. Now these numbers, when that component is in its correct orientation, these numbers will be upright. So you can see that this here will need to be turned over, and this one here will need to be more or less on its side some way. And by doing that, by keeping the all of the text orientated correctly, when you put them down you can very, very quickly see where each of those components fits. Okay, we'll just take a quick look at the other 6.5mm sheet. So sheet number 2, and on this one you can see that we've got the tailplane itself plus the elevator, some more components for the wing. These are the spars, but you can see that because of the length of them, one spar wouldn't fit on a sheet of balsa that would fit inside the laser. So you can see that this piece here will actually sit right there. Okay, so that's what we've had to do there. I've had to cut the spars so that we can fit them onto our sheets. Okay, so with all that said, I think what we should do now is go straight to the laser. Let's start cutting. So the first sheet I'm going to cut out then is the first of our 1/8 balsa sheets. Now this is going to be 3 pieces of balsa, and each piece is going to be 410mm long. You can see, because that's where the edge of our cutting area is there, and they're each 100mm wide. Now the settings I'm going to use are on our cutting line. Now these settings were all discovered when we did, or were all identified when we did a test cut, which I show very clearly in our basics series. So if you're wondering how to do the test cut and how to get your settings for your machine, go to the basics video and have a look at how the test cut is done on Lightburn, and that will show you how I arrived at these. So my speed will be 450 millimeters per minute, and the power I'm going to use is 80%. Now I'm going to turn air assist off because the Sculpfun S9 does not have air assist, but I'm going to turn constant power mode on, because constant power mode will mean that when it reaches corners the power won't reduce. When you don't have constant power mode on, the power reduces when you go round corners to stop you burning, when as the module seems to be in the same place, if it doubles back on itself, for example. So that's all I want to do for our cutting layer. So if I go to our engraving layer, I'm going to change that to 1000 millimeters a minute, and I'm going to leave that at 20%. Again, I'm going to turn off air assist and I'm going to turn on constant power mode. So when I press OK, you can see all those settings have now come in over here on the right. The next thing I want to do is I want to move our engraving layer to the top, so that the laser will engrave or do the writing first, do the text first. And the reason I want to do that is because if any of the pieces, if the board isn't perfectly flat and any of the pieces fall out, I don't want the laser to be in the wrong place, or to lose any of our integrity of our engraving. So all we do is grab that one and just lift it to the top. When I let it go, you see we've now got our engraving layer at the top and our cutting layer at the bottom. So the next thing we need to do is we'll just frame our shapes by pressing frame, and then what that will do is that will get the laser to trace around the outside or the boundary, and it'll allow us to have a look and make sure that all our wood is in exactly the right place just before we start. So click on frame, and we can see from that yeah, we are all in the right place and we're good to go, ready to press start, which we'll do right now. Okay, so we're all lined up. We've framed our pieces of wood, and we know we're in the right place. Our extractor hood's on, the extractor's now switched on, so it's time to go. I'll show you what that looks like right now. press start. Missile laser through the hood, looking through the screen. It's just doing the engraving layer first, as we explained, or as we discussed a minute ago. Okay, the next sheets are 300mm, 420mm and 330mm, and that will cut out the rest of our ribs and some more of our formers. So I'll just close our hood and we'll get on with that one. So that's all the components cut out. We've got the 6.5mm balsa, which got some of the heavier components, some the spars and some of the outline, and also the tailplane. If I just pop that out, you'll be able to see on the plan. Just pop that one out. How that is a single piece, and that fits the plan just like that. And then of course we've got the elevator here, which will then sit right into the tailplane like that. Then we've got the 3.2mm components, where we've got the body formers, the trailing edge, etc. So we've got those. I've also got the 3mm ply, where I've got the strengtheners for the dihedral, which are shown here on the plan. Two of those have got a slot in to hold the platform for the undercarriage to be bound on. So I'll show you how we put all those together later. I've also got some additional formers. I had a piece that I've used for something else, and there was a little space at the bottom here, so I've put a few formers on there. So they're the ply formers, which are going to give us a little bit of strength in the front end of the fuselage. I've got two sheets for the plan. This one shows the wing and the tailplane, along with a few other bits of detail around the strength for the dihedral, etc. And then underneath that I've got the plan for the fuselage, and so this is obviously the side view and the plan view. So what I think we'll do, I'll use a sheet of cardboard, which I've got here. I'm going to lay the plan onto the cardboard, and then I'll use a piece of cling film over the top of that just to protect the plan, and we'll start constructing, and I think we'll start with the fuselage. So let's get on with that now. So I'm just popping out these last of the pieces, the on the 6.5mm balsa, and then all I'm doing is laying out the keel so that you know, arranging it on the plan, so so I can see where everything goes. So that piece will just sit there, and then we've got our shape that's going to go around the wing. So they'll sit like that. Then I've got this piece which leads towards the tail end, and then that fits in there. So more or less that is the shape of the keel. Now the original plan had a solid keel because this was a control line aircraft, but in order to make it radio control, I've produced a hollow keel. So these are all the components that will be fastened together, and they'll be supported by the formers. And what this will do, this will allow us then to put the electronics inside so that we can convert to radio control. So that's the components for the keel. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick those down, and then we'll start to put the formers on and see how it looks from there. So the key thing is to get these in exactly the right place, and I think I'm going to start around the cockpit here and then work away, because there's a lot of small joins here, and what I don't want to do, if we set something up slightly wrong at one end, by the time we reach the other end we'll be quite a way off the plan. So so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build this little cockpit area and then put everything around that. So if I start, there we go, if I just start by connecting this down, now that I know that's all in the right place. So with all that said, first bit, make sure that line is exactly right along the top. I'll just pin that down into the card that the plan is sitting on. And then that's our first piece in. Okay, now the formers, the first former is going to be B, and that's one of our plywood formers, so I'll just pop that out of there. So as we're putting the shapes in, it'll be important to do a quick check, you know, just to make sure that the bottom of our aircraft as we assemble it fits this former correctly, because the former we know is going to be very, very precise because it was built from the plan. So as long as we get everything to line up, we'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so I think get our glue, and I will start to assemble the front end, I think. That will just sit there like that. Okay, let's just complete this. As we said, we'll just get this cockpit area finished as we said a minute ago. That will just go there like that. We'll just pin everything firmly into place.
Okay. I've just used a little bit of sandpaper to remove some of the char from where the joins are, just so that I don't have too much dust, which might prevent good adhesion. So just something I've done to help with the build. Okay. What I want to do is make sure that this follows the line along here, the line of the plan. There. Okay, that looks about just around about perfect. And I'm making sure that I put plenty of glue on, so we get a good firm, strong bond. Okay, and then this is the shape where we sit over the wing, which I explained during our during the design phase, or the Lightburn phase. So just need to make sure that we follow this line on the plan. So just there, I think. Now, if we just have a look, we've got a C. There's two C's there, but I've labelled them up as C1 and C2. So I'll just pop those out. What we'll do is we'll just check that these are going to fit properly. So there's C1. Just pop out C2. There we go. And all I want to do now is just check that this is going to be the right position, and that looks pretty close to me. That's very good. Happy with that. Okay. So we can carry on round now and complete the rest of the rest of the fuselage that sits above the wing, and that there looks like a good fit as well, so yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I'll just pin all that in place. And now we just need to bring this up to meet the nose end, just like that. Okay. Now before I pin this down, I'm just going to put it all in place, and any minor adjustments we need to make, I can do that before anything's pinned, and then we'll be sure that we're going to be good. There we go, just like that. All three components in place. Okay, and that's the outline of the keel completed now. So what I'm going to do is leave that all to set, and then we'll look at fitting the formers on one side. Okay, and I'll show you how we do that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to stick the formers in now. And each of them are marked up. You can see where they're all marked on the plan. I've got them all laid out. So I'll just put those in and make sure that they all go in the right place, and make sure they're all perfect fit. So there is former B going straight in exactly where it needs to on the plan. Now it's important to make sure that these are upright, so that we get the right shape, the right profile shape when we put the formers on the other side as well. Now these three formers that I'm putting in right now, you can see that I've produced a flat on the bottom of them, and they all line up. So this one will be sitting behind that one, and the reason for that is because I'm going to sit a platform on that when the formers are all on, and what that will do is that will allow me to put the electronics in. That'll allow me to put the electronics in, and they'll all sit on that platform. The receiver and the and probably the battery as well will sit there, although we'll put the battery in once we've determined our centre of balance, just to make sure that everything balances out nicely. Okay. Just need to move some of these pins as we're putting our formers in place. Okay, now this next one's quite interesting. This one's got the headrest behind the pilot, and so I've cut this shape in here so that it will sit across our right across our keel shape, just like that. And that looks like it's going to be a really good fit. So let me just move this pin out of the way, and what I'll do is I'll put glue just on this back edge as well, so it sits against the keel too. Okay. Oops. Let's just re-stick that one down. There. And that looks like it'll be a really good fit. Right, why is this one falling over? There we go. It's quite a good fit. Okay. Just check these. Yeah, they're all very good. All very good fits, so I'll just carry on, put those in. Now what I'll do is I'll put the last of these formers in, and then I'll stop this video then, and I'll leave it all to set, and then we'll be able to remove it, put the formers on the other side before we put the stringers in. Or I might put one or two of the stringers in before we take it off, just to give it a little bit of strength and rigidity. The great thing about doing this on Lightburn and then cutting out your own thing, your own model, is you can check all the sizes on Lightburn, and then everything, as you're assembling, everything fits together really, really nicely, just like these are doing now. They're just slotting in there perfectly. Okay, and the last of the formers, or the last of these formers on the side, sits just here, and it comes up to the bottom of where the tail plane goes in, just there, and then the next part sits above that. So just need to be careful how I put those on, and you know, make sure that I don't obstruct that slot for the tail plane at all. Okay. Okay, now I'll just make sure that they are all in line, these ones here at the back, and I'll do that just by putting this ruler against them, just to make sure that that's straight. Oops. Once it's covered, I'm sure it'll be fine anyway, but just from a aesthetic point of view, I want it to be absolutely perfect. There we go. So that's all the formers on. What I'll do now is I'm going to leave this to set, and then we'll be in a position where we can put maybe one or two of the stringers on, and then flip it over and put the other formers on, so we've got the overall shape. And then we'll be in a position to put our front former on, which is going to hold the motor, and then I'll show you how we do that. But that's all I'm going to do for this video now. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.